Every love story deserves to be told. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am taking you through some of my absolutely must-read authors who are somewhere in the LGBT umbrella. These are some of the best authors that I think I've ever read from, and it does encapsulate a couple of genres, but it will be no surprise to you that the majority of them are romance writers. There are, however, a couple of contemporary books in here, there are a couple of historical fiction books in here, and there's quite a lot of YA, so wherever you are in discovering your sexuality, wherever you are in your journey, there is something that's going to fit for you. First up is, for me, the queen of romance, and that is Talia Hibbert. This is the specific book that I really like to highlight because even though it is the second book in a series, I think Dani is the best representation of an LGBT character that Talia Hibbert has. I absolutely love how unapologetically herself Dani Brown is, but she's also the sister who is proudly and unabashedly bisexual. Dani is also a PhD student, and she is also a witch who's really into Wiccan things, and I absolutely love following her and Zaf's journey, particularly because Zaf is a rugby player, and there is just nothing better in my mind than a rugby playing boyfriend. I really love the representation of a bisexual woman in a straight presenting relationship. It's something that is so prevalent in my life. It's prevalent in a lot of other relationships that I know, and it is something that really needs to be drawn attention to. Talia herself is LGBT. She's written quite a lot of other books that feature LGBT characters, but I feel like this is the one that best represents that from her. Next up is Emma Donoghue. Emma is one of my favourite cross-genre writers. She writes contemporary fiction just as phenomenally as she does historical fiction. Some of my favourite books from her do kind of tend towards the historical fiction, such as The Wonder and such as The Pull of the Stars. The Pull of the Stars actually itself does also feature a lesbian romance kind of towards the end of the book. And given that this takes place during the time of the Spanish influenza and is set in a maternity hospital in Dublin, you can kind of tell how the vibes of this book are. But this completely blew me away. It's one of the only books ever to have made me cry. There are also plenty of recommendations for younger YA readers, such as Kira Smith. Kira is one of my favourite YA LGBT authors, and I absolutely adored the Falling in Love montage. If you love a rom-com, and particularly the Falling in Love montage that a lot of rom-coms do have, you will really enjoy the Falling in Love montage, as it follows two young girls who get to know each other over a summer. One of them is obsessed with rom-coms and the other one is just head over heels for slasher films. And they try and get each other on side with their particular genre of film, but end up having a falling in love montage of their own. Another great Irish YA author is Adiba Jagadar, and I absolutely love all of her contemporary books. She has also written a historical fiction book that is set on the Titanic that you feel like would be the perfect thing for me. Unfortunately, it just didn't scratch the itch that I wanted it to. But what I really love about Adiba Jagardar's fiction is that it features Muslim voices and immigrant voices in a world where everything is so whitewashed. I really love watching things from her perspective. I really love learning about her culture. I've never really experienced Bangladeshi culture, so learning about it in the pages of a book is just a phenomenal way to experience it a little bit more. While she has never written an explicitly LGBT novel that I know of, one of the queens of children's fiction is Jacqueline Wilson. And Jacqueline Wilson came out as LGBT a couple of years ago herself. This is Think Again. It is a follow-up to the Girls in Love series, and I absolutely inhaled that when I was a teenager. I haven't gone into Think Again because I'm genuinely a little bit worried about it. I've seen a couple of mixed reviews. I've seen a couple of people say that she hasn't really found her niche with adult writing yet. But I do know that a follow-up to The Illustrated Mum, which is one of my favourite of her books, is coming in August or September of 2025. And when I get my hands on that one, I genuinely hope that she has just found her footing in the adult fiction world. Another author who themselves is queer but hasn't written a whole lot of queer fiction that I am aware of is R.F. Kuang. Yellowface was the first book that I read of hers, and I was completely blown away by it. I think the reason that it is the first book I've read of hers is because R.F. Kuang is mainly a fantasy writer. You've got the Poppy Wars, you have got Babel, and those just weren't my genre of book. When Yellowface, a contemporary novel, came along, I knew that this was something that I wanted to dive into, and her writing style encapsulated me in a way that a book hadn't for such a long time up until then. It's also got a really interesting premise of a writer who passes themselves off as Chinese in order to take over the manuscript of one of their friends who has recently passed away. And it has got a lot of questions about the publishing industry as a whole and about whitewashing and Asian washing and trying to fit yourself into a narrative that isn't yours. I absolutely love a baking competition or a cooking competition in books, so that is why Anita Kelly's debut novel, Love and Other Disasters, worked phenomenally for me. Something else that I love about their books, though, is that characters who have featured in the first book will appear in the second book, and characters who have featured in the first two books will appear in the third book. It might not necessarily be a series, it is just a connected world of novels, and I really love that idea. I love the idea of checking in with characters that I've known before, seeing what it is that they're up to, finding out what's going on in their lives right now. And that is just something that I feel Anita Kelly does really well. It's not overdone in any way. It just reminds you what these people are getting up to. There's also kind of something for everybody in their books. So, like I said, the first book is about a cooking competition with a non-binary contestant taking part for the first time and how that has affected them. Their second book, Something Wild and Wonderful, is about two guys who have met each other while they're out on the Pacific North Coast Trail, and despite some struggles at the beginning, they actually start to have a really wonderful relationship with one another. And their third book, How You Get the Girl, is about a young teenager who is trying to join the school's basketball team because her aunt, who is taking care of her, is a world-renowned basketball player and the basketball coach in the school who has really caught her aunt's eye. I really love the kind of interconnected but also separate styles of these books, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what's coming next from Anita Kelly. In a similar vein, Alexis Hall also has a baking competition show, kind of based around the Great British Bake Off, and I absolutely loved the massive cast of characters that in here, but Rosalind Palmer really did win it out for me. She was brash, she was vivacious, she was unapologetically herself, she was bisexual, unashamed of it, and didn't really care what her parents thought of her. I absolutely loved following her through every week on this show, and there are so many other great books from Alexis Hall that you can check out. He has got a historical romance series. He's also got the hugely popular boyfriend material series that I've only read one book from so far, but it has been such a hit for me that I cannot wait to see what the next book in it is going to be like. I've only read two books from Meryl Wisner so far, but I have loved both of them. Both of them that I have read so far have featured female-female relationships, but their most recent book, My Best Friend's Honeymoon, actually features a female and non-binary relationship. This is something that I am so intrigued in seeing because I feel like I haven't read a lot of books with non-binary representation, and it's something that I need to read a lot more from. I'm also just ready for a book that is set in the Caribbean. It's set in a tropical paradise. And I need that to be the perfect start into my summer reading. If it's got warm temperatures, if it's got sandy beaches and blue skies and crystal waters, I need something like that to really kick my summer reading into gear. And if that sounds like something that you might need as well, I think Meryl Wisner books are definitely something you should check out. Taylor Jenkins Reid recently came out as bisexual, and that is something that also happens with Evelyn Hugo. We don't, in the book, get a moment where Evelyn comes out to the press and comes out to the public as bisexual, but it has just always been inherently who she is as a person. Evelyn Hugo has got its debates. Evelyn Hugo has got its people that do not enjoy it, but this is one of my favorite books of all time. I still vividly remember the moment when I read this. I was on a plane into Vienna. I think I had read up to about 50 or so percent of it on the plane, and I did not want to let it go. I didn't want to go and explore Vienna. I only had a couple of days in the city, but I actively went, sought out a cafe, I think it may have even been McDonald's, sat down, ordered something, and did not leave my chair until I had finished this book. It just encapsulated me. And I know that Taylor Jenkins Reid has got other books along this kind of historical fiction series, but she's also got a lot of really great contemporary books. However, her upcoming book in June, Atmosphere, feels like a little bit of a stretch for what she's usually written, because it doesn't take place on Earth. Atmosphere takes place on a spaceship that has just been launched into the atmosphere, and I am so intrigued to see what this kind of swerve in direction is going to be like. If you want to continue on with that historical fiction vibe, then I would recommend Colm Tóibín. He is a really great author who does a lot of books about people from Ireland. One of his most famous books is Brooklyn. This follows Ailish Lacey, a young woman who moves from Ireland to the US, and all of the things that she is going through in her life. I think this is such a wonderful depiction of what the immigrant experience is actually like. As somebody who has also left Ireland for another country, this book hit me like a train right through the chest. It really does encapsulate the experience that you have of leaving the familiarity of your home country and moving somewhere where the cultures, the traditions, everything is so completely different. Even if the language is completely the same, there might be little nuances that will trip you up now and then. Colm also brought out Long Island last year, which is a follow up to Brooklyn. But if you want to check out some of his other books, I highly recommend Nora Webster as well. Another author you should check out without question is Juno Dawson. Now, she may be well known for the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, but there is a whole other trilogy that I definitely think you need to check out as well. One of my favourite books by Juno Dawson is Clean. This is a phenomenal depiction of what addiction is like, particularly for younger people, how it can sweep you up and just how gripping it can be on your life. I haven't read that book in quite some time. I think I read an arc of it when it first came out in the late 2010s, early 2020s. And I need to go back and read that book again. It's the first in a trilogy which is following three young people who are all living in London. The next book in the series is a look at the modelling and the fashion industry, and the third book of it is a completely tripped out retelling of Alice in Wonderland. All three of these books are completely gripping, but Clean just did something to me that no other book did up until then. Juno also has a couple of non-fiction books where she talks about her experience as a trans woman living in the UK. The Gender Games is one that I particularly recommend because it's got a lot of first-hand knowledge about what it's like to be trans living in the UK. But also This Book is Gay is a really great one to read, and particularly one to look for if you are looking to up your banned bookshelf. This is something that has been challenged and banned more times than I can care to count, which is such a pity and such a travesty because there is so much knowledge in this book that some people who are questioning their gender identity or questioning their sexuality could really use. If you want an author who is going to write you a hug in a book, then look no further than Alice Oseman. The Heartstopper series has absolutely exploded. The sixth and final book of the series is coming out in late 2025, and there is also a hugely successful Netflix series that is just comfort watching personified. If you've ever needed something that is going to pick you up after a rough day, then I recommend putting Heartstopper on. Even if it's in the background while you're just getting along with your day, or if you're rotting on the couch and you just need something that's going to buoy you up a little bit, the Heartstopper series is definitely the one to call on. Something that I love about Alison Cochrane is that she has got a book for every season of the year. If you feel like reading something Christmassy, then go and check out Kiss Her Once for Me, which is a kind of take on Our Little Secret, if you've seen that movie. It's about a young girl who goes home with a coworker or a friend and pretends to be his girlfriend, but falls in love with his sister. And if you want to read something that's a little bit more summery or springtime, then go and check out Here We Go Again. This is about two young women who are working in the same school, and they used to be best friends back when they were actually attending that said school. Now that they are grown up, they've kind of gone on different directions and different paths in life, but have to kind of begrudgingly work with one another, and also have to drive the entire way across the country because one of their co-workers is suffering from cancer, and for his last wishes, he just wants to see the cottage that he grew up in Maine one more time. I loved this road trip book, and I really loved how it brought everybody together by the end of the book. It is a complete tug at the heartstrings, but it is such wonderful reading. Of course, the 5 members of the Fab Five from Queer Eye have gotten their own books and they've gotten their own things to discuss, but one that I am going to focus on here for this video is Jonathan Van Ness. I've read both of their autobiographies and I absolutely loved them. The first one deals a little bit more with Jonathan's early life. growing up in Illinois in a very small town where being any kind of individual was very heavily frowned upon, about the time that they were back in school and when they felt like they were truly being singled out for who they really were, how they had gotten onto Queer Eye and how they had trained in cosmetology and how they trained in hair. I absolutely loved this book that brought us right up to how we had gotten to know Jonathan Van Ness, the person. Then you go into their second autobiography, and that deals a little bit more with what life is like as a famous person, what life is like as somebody who has the entire eyes of the world on you, how pressurizing that can be, how you feel like you can't really do anything because it's going to be scrutinized by the press, by your fans, by your haters, by anybody online with an opinion. I absolutely love Jonathan. I know that they can be very Marmite when it comes to the entire cast of Queer Eye because they are very energetic. They are so unapologetically themselves, but I absolutely love them so much for just being who they are. I've said earlier that it's really important to tell stories about bisexual characters in straight presenting relationships, and Alexandria Belfleur has got two. Not only do we have Truly Madly Deeply, which follows Truly and Colin, who are podcasters and relationship gurus working on the same kind of show to give relationship advice, but we also have the second book in the Written in the Stars series. Hang the Moon features Annie and Brendan, who are also in a straight presenting relationship, but one of them is bisexual. In Truly Madly Deeply, both of the people in this relationship are bisexual. And there are tiny little clues about that. If you look at this tiny little hang on that Colin has got on his jeans with the bisexual flag, I absolutely love Alexandria Belfleur's writing style. I think she is so phenomenal with the way that she puts words together. I don't know if she's got anything coming up in the next year or two, but whatever she brings out, I'm going to eat it up whole. When you are an LGBT person, it's so important to have a found family, particularly when you don't get along with your own family so well. That is so prevalent in the Bright Fall series by Ashley Herring Blake. Not only are all of the characters in this book unashamedly queer, but some of them have got struggles with their own families. For example, Delilah has never really seen eye to eye with her stepmother and her stepsister. Her actual stepsister Astrid, in the second book, does talk to her mother about how kind of on a pedestal she is and how she looks down on other people just because of who they might actually be. I love how tight-knit the group is in Bright Falls. I particularly love how much they care for one another, but also for younger people who think they might be queer themselves and have questions that they need answering and may not necessarily be getting those answers anytime soon, but just knowing that there is somebody out there looking out for them is such a huge thing to read. I absolutely love Ashley Herring Blake's writing. There is only one book of hers that hasn't worked for me so far, but I'm hopeful that when we get a new book out from her, it's going to turn the curve back up a little bit. Much like the previously mentioned Alison Cochrane, Lizzie Oxley-Jones also has something that you can read in every season. Again, if you're looking for something Christmassy, then you have got not one, but two books that you can pick up. Make You Mine This Christmas is about a young woman who, like in Kiss Her Once For Me, goes home with a co-worker pretending to be his girlfriend and falls in love with his sister. In the follow-up book, Under the Mistletoe With You, we are following her best friend who is supposed to be going home to his family for Christmas, but because of a massive snowstorm, has been stranded in West Wales. It's just that he had put his apartment on Airbnb to rent out while he was gone for a little bit of extra money, and who turns up at the front door is a hugely successful movie star that Chris has had a crush on ever since he has seen his first movie, but has to pretend that he has no idea who Nash is. I absolutely love the community feeling of Under the Mistletoe With You. I think it's one of my favorite aspects of this book, in that the entire town just got together, understood that they were in this situation that nobody really wanted to be in, and just got each other through it. And if you want something a little bit more summery, then you should go and check out Hits Different, which Lizzie Oxley-Jones actually wrote with Tasha Ghouri. This is about Cassie, a partially deaf woman who wears a cochlear implant, who's been hired as a backing dancer for a world tour for one of the world's biggest superstars. Things are starting to get a little bit complicated at home because Cassie can never get in touch with her boyfriend at home any time that she wants to talk to him. And she's starting to fall in love with Majorca a little bit more every day that she's there. Those are some of my favourite LGBT authors and some of the books that they have written that I truly think you need to go and pick up. Have you got any queer authors that are your absolute go-to? And would you recommend any of their books to us? If you'd love to leave me a comment, if you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave the rainbow flag emoji or a rainbow of hearts. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.